Well, welcome everyone to the BOSS webinar, which stands for Business Owner Success Series. My name is Jodie Shaw. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the Alternative Board Worldwide. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Ben Ledoni, the founder and CEO of Creative MMS, which stands for Multimedia Solutions, and Jennifer Greenjack, the Director of Marketing for Creative MMS as well. Today we're going to discuss how to attract and convert leads with content. Now more than ever, business owners and business leaders are looking at their digital marketing solutions to grow their businesses. And Ben and Jennifer come from an agency based in Pennsylvania that specializes in just that. So welcome, Ben and Jennifer, and I'll hand it across to you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're looking forward to teaching you guys today a little bit about what we know in terms of how to attract and convert leads with content. So first off, I'm Ben, CEO and founder of Creative. I started in 2005. I geek out over data and love making marketing effective using data. I have 3 kids and a wife, a dog named Nova because I went to Villanova, and so did my wife. We met there. And spent a lot of time on the business and innovating around digital marketing. I have with me today Jennifer Greenjack, our Director of Marketing.
Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer. Nice to talk to you all today. Thanks for joining us. Like Ben said, I'm the Director of Marketing at Creative MMS. Been with them now for a little over a year, but I've been in digital marketing probably since around 2002, so I'm now dating myself. What's been really cool about my journey through marketing is just seeing how it's evolved over the past couple of decades, and even just over the past few months with everything that's going on. So personal note, yes, I too am married, but no kids, just 3 dogs. So, my life is full of a lot of fur and fun. And we hope that, what you learned today is really going to help you move forward and understand how content marketing can really assist you with your needs and the needs of individuals, especially today in the digital world. So thank you.
Cool.
Ben, back to you.
Sure. So we do have a poll, and the answers to this poll will really help us in terms of shaping some of the content. We definitely can tailor it a little bit in terms of the more goals that you guys have or challenges that you have. So if you could choose only one, what's your #1 most important goal for content marketing? And I did just lose my screen. Hold on, let me see if I can.
Hey, Ben, that's because I've put the poll up.
Cool. Yeah, so if you could choose only one, what's your #1 most important goal for content marketing? You can select one of the following, but it's gain more eyeballs to my business, turn website visitors into sales and opportunities, assist the sales team with hot topics, or build brand loyalty with current clients and evangelists.
Great. Well, we've got answers coming through. We'll just put another sort of 30 seconds. So if you just want to pop your answer there, but we are having a clear winner at the moment.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now, but we had 57 people, 57% of attendees say turn website visitors into sales opportunities, and 32% of people said more eyeballs to my business. I'm going to close that poll, and you should be back. We're seeing your desktop at the moment, Ben, so if you want to just bring up your presentation.
Sure, no problem. Great. So, and in terms of the poll questions, those are typically the most common: traffic and eyeballs to the business, and website visitors into sales opportunities. So we'll cover and stress those 2 for sure. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to cover topics like why create content, what's the importance of it. We'll discuss a little bit about the audience and the competition and why that's important. A lot of times people have great plans for content, maybe have created content, but they don't really have a plan for where it needs to live. So we'll cover a little bit of that. SEO and search engines in terms of traffic and opportunity. As far as that poll question goes, bringing eyeballs in, SEO is a great reason for starting content. So we'll discuss some of that. Building trust. Content is a great opportunity to build trust. So we'll cover why that is and how to do that. Using content and promoting that content online for things like social media and any paid campaigns online, and whether or not this really works. Like, how can we show you as an example that this works and is worth the investment? Also, we have a really cool template that we will provide the link for you to download That is basically the template that we use to build out strategic marketing plans for our clients and customers, who we call partners. If you download that template, you should be able to use what we've taught you in today's webinar to build out a strategy for yourself, at least the basics. Granted, our team does a lot more strategic and in-depth in terms of each area of expertise, but it should give you a framework for before you start diving in, creating content to set that framework and plan about the steps that are needed to get going. So why do you need great content? These are some facts and stats that we brought together. 61% of consumers are influenced by custom content. I think you guys all know this in terms of how you search online to find the answers that you're looking for, and that the content that you find influences your decision about maybe what you buy. Could be reviews, could be write-ups on blog articles about products. Companies with 30+ landing pages on their website generate 7 times more leads than companies with 1 to 5 landing pages. And of course, that's HubSpot, we're a partner of HubSpot. We use HubSpot very often for lead generation, but the reason that you're able to generate a lot more leads with more pages is just frankly because there's more content there for opportunities for people to download the information. Conversion rates are 6 times higher for content marketing adopters than non-adopters. So you could see that in terms of just making sure that you have content out there will increase the conversion for those eyeballs that come to your site. Content marketing costs 62% less than traditional marketing and generates about 3x as many leads. That to me is just huge opportunity. It's one of the reasons why we chose this topic and we recommend content marketing so specifically. If you look at spending online for AdWords or ad campaigns or even social media ads versus long-term creating content that brings in organic traffic over the time period, it will cost you much less and build trust with an audience in a way that more people become leads or more eyeballs become leads. While roughly only 60% of marketers stated that content marketing is very important or extremely important, only 24% of them plan on increasing the investment. So I actually see that as a lot of opportunity, right? Because if you run a business against competitors and your content is what you want the eyeballs to see, those marketers in your competitive landscape may believe that it's important to do it, but don't have the budget or get the approval to invest in it. That's one of the reasons why we say it's an important piece to start with. So where do you start? Okay, let's say we've figured out that it's an important investment, but you're kind of looking at a blank canvas and you don't know really what you need to do to start. So what I like to say is that your content really builds a bridge between your audience and you, okay? And so you're basically trying to figure out the pain point of the audience and what they're trying to accomplish or what their main challenge is, and build that bridge to you using content. So what you want to do is be able to identify the exact audience that you're trying to reach. Who are you trying to build, who are you building that bridge for? So create content for multiple audiences. We tend to recommend that 3 audiences is the best, and we use a term called personas for that. So we keep it simple with 2 to 3 personas, and those are usually 80 to 90% of your sales. Sometimes personas could also be like right now, a lot of people are hiring. So, it might even be for recruiting. You may want to spotlight that as a persona, but you got to start before you start diving into that content creation. Think about who am I really trying to create this content for? That will help you understand much more about them so that you can tailor the content towards the pain that they have, the challenges and the questions that they might ask.
And keep in mind that persona doesn't necessarily mean this is your ultimate buyer, the one that's going to make that decision. Of course, that's probably your most important persona, but there could also be influencers that may do a lot of the research prior to actually somebody making a decision. So you want to make sure that you're also creating content for those influencers that are going to, connect with the decision makers within their company and say, I've done a lot of research. These are the 2 or 3 that we're weeding it down to. And this is all the information I can gather from them for you.
Exactly. So in terms of facts that you may want to know about them, and we're going to show you an example of this that outlines some of the facts. Jennifer will walk you through that. But you want to really get at the pain points and problems that they're trying to solve. So like, even spotlighting the person down to the title, the potential age, the demographics, the things that they may want to do or look and research as part of this customer journey that they're on to find the next solution. What questions are they asking? Where do they go to get that information? What are the trigger points that made them start looking, right? So for us, another agency maybe is failing the client and they're looking and they're shopping for their budget for next year to redeploy those dollars to being more effective. We know that's a trigger point for our audience. What is it for you guys so that you can tailor that content to them? What's their ultimate goal? How does the product, your product or service, help them reach that goal? And what journey do they take from awareness to consideration to decision? We talk about this marketing funnel where you're trying to first create awareness, then people know about you, you're trying to have them consider you against the competition, and then they're looking to make a decision. They need to make sure that they trust you and they're confident in their decision to work with you. All three of those layers of that funnel may require different content for the audiences for each persona.
So as you can see here, Ben mentioned that I'm going to be showing the next few slides as an example of one that we did for one of our clients, Interview Group. They are actually a company that focuses on internal brand alignment. So we really looked at, who are the individuals within a company that are really going to be most interested. And one that came up was Brian, the brand champion. Brand champion being, they have a new brand, they need to understand more about it, they need to communicate internally what it is that they want to know about this product or service that they're offering, and how can they convey that messaging in a consistent manner to their ultimate consumers, whether it's their influencers or their buyers. So Brian, the brand champion, is that decision maker that's going to make it. We focus on things like Ben said, first you want to know a little bit about their background. Who are they? What's their education level? Maybe what's their age? What are some of the adjectives that'll probably describe them? And then go more further into what are their goals? And this is where you get a little more detailed. These next 3 slides are really going to be extremely detailed. You can make a buyer persona as elaborate as you need it to be, but in some cases, you can narrow it down to specific things. Goals and challenges are probably the most important thing that you want to focus on, because you need to understand what are their pain points, what are they facing, and how can you help solve them? So that, and that's where it all begins. Going into what Ben just did, switch to the second slide of this kind of mini template of a persona, is we need to understand more about what Brian's journey is. And when we say a journey, it's like, what are the touch points that he needs to see or read or understand as he moves through the buyer's funnel, which is pretty much from awareness. He's aware he has a problem, he knows he needs to deal with it, to consideration, what options does he have to understand, to solve his problem, and then decision is which one is he going to go with. In this particular case with this client, we also had an additional challenge on top of that, in the sense that many people didn't know that there was even a solution out there to help them with this problem. So they may not have even been searching. So there was a need for us to even create the awareness around the circumstance, because many people don't realize that they have some kind of internal breakdown in communication, and they just think that everything's going okay, from marketing to sales to maybe vendors, things of that sort. So, we really kind of narrowed down Brian's journey. We looked at what research questions Brian needed to have answered. This is great because it gives you the opportunity to answer those questions, and you can answer it in various formats. It could be various content formats online, whether it's a blog, whether it's a video, whether it's a more elaborate white paper or guide that you want to create, depending upon what the question is and how long and how detailed you want the answer to be. So if you go to the next slide, Ben, we then take it even further and say, okay, now that we understand, what the questions are and what they're trying to trigger, what are the search intents? Are we putting in the right keywords into those questions and into various content topic opportunities, so that when Brian is searching for answers to his questions, hopefully, in this case, Interview Group will come up as the right solution to his needs. So, and they can start, building that relationship. From there, it is the opportunity for them to continue it and convert them into a sales opportunity and take them to that next level, whether it's through gated content, whether it's through a phone call from a sales team member, something of that sort. So it really is a progressive thought pattern when it comes to building out a buyer persona, and taking each chunk as need be to kind of break it down and understand, how does this person think? Where do they go to get their information? How can I get this information to them? And how can I be answering the right questions and answering those pain points or those triggers that will lead them to us in the first place? And that part, just so you know, those 3 slides, I know Ben mentioned at the beginning, we'll be offering a strategic marketing plan template at the end, and those 3 slides are part of the template.
So the next thing too you want to keep an eye on is the competition, right? So you may have identified the questions that people are your desired customers or prospects, if you want to call them that, are looking to have answered. But there might be other people that have those answers on websites as well. So you really want to take those topics and start to search and get a feel for your true competitors that are answering those questions that your audience already has. That becomes beneficial as well, because you're really trying to make sure that when somebody searches for that question that you show up ahead of them. And since Google search rankings are, only one person can be in that top spot, people trust that top spot. If you're looking to increase the value of the SEO of your website and your content, you really need to know and have a lay of the land of the competitors in that landscape. It might also shift your focus to really write content that has a lot higher searches but lower competition, so that you're showing up more, more frequently for that search term. What else can you add to the conversation? So when you start looking at not just competitors, but other people talking about this, it's a good opportunity to not just engage, not just put the content on your website, but engage with that conversation where it might be. So that's where things like hashtags come into play, things like, Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, where you may want to join the conversation around the topics that you've identified, because the people that you've identified as personas are engaging or finding that answer to the question there. And then look at your competition too, in terms of where they're promoting their content, where, find the conversations they're already in, understand the challenge that they pinpointed and what they're trying to solve, and look at that as far as like, well, if they're there, we probably need to be there, but we also want to go over to what we call the blue ocean, where there's no sharks fighting, to try and make sure that our content's going to show up when people look for it.
And when you think about the competition, don't just think about who you think your competitors are. One point that Ben mentioned right at the top was searching Google and kind of just typing in certain things and see who comes up. Google may see your competitors as somebody different than what's in your mind. And those are also who you're competing against, because when people search, that's what's going to come up. So you need to keep that in mind too when you're considering who your competitors really are. You might think it's the guy down the street, but the gentleman down the street and you may not show up in the same search term.
Absolutely, yeah. So where should the content live? So then let's say you have a plan for those topics, you know what you need, what questions you need to answer. But a lot of the times we get the question of, okay, well, should I just put that content out on social media? Should it live on my website? Where's the right place to put it? Should it be a white paper? Jennifer mentioned different content types, and content types decide where the content might live. So for example, if you put a video out there, it should be on YouTube if it's free educational thought leadership content, because a lot of people find video on YouTube and Google gives it a lot of precedence. So you got to think about where the audience is looking for that content. And you really want to look at the competition and promote the content where they are as well. We always recommend that you have a section on your website, and we'll get into this in a little bit, that houses your content, because the more you can increase the value of your domain and your website, the more you can build trust and support both the eyeballs that you're looking to attract and the conversion that you're looking to create when somebody does come into the site. B2B marketers, here's a stat here, use an average of 12 content marketing tactics. So when you're really trying to do this properly, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing it, and multiple tactics as far as where to put it. Again, when we talk about on the website, what you want to do is make sure it's really easy to find, provide a quick and easy user experience, and we'll show you some examples of this. But organization is really key. I mean, I guarantee you guys have been to a website before that was clunky, hard to find the information, and it automatically created a bad taste in your mouth about working with that company. A lot of times that's a matter of where the content is that you're going to look for, and especially if you're investing time and energy into showing up for searches or showing up for the right content on social media. Let's say people come into the website, maybe they search for a product or service that you have and you offer, then they get to the page and they really can't find it that easily, or they can't find why it's important, or they can't find something that they expected to see that we thought in the customer journey they needed to, like pricing or something like that. So the organization of the content, identifying where it needs to go and putting it there is really important. Also, keywords and SEO in terms of attracting more eyeballs is very important. You want to make sure that you layer in those keywords, and we have some best practices for that I'll show you as well, to really to speak to the search engines as far as the intent that people are searching for, but be conversational and engage the audience. Google does not just look at, do you say these words on the page, but also takes into many factors about, do people engage with this page? Do they bounce from it? To make sure that that is a valuable page to show up for certain keywords or terms. You want to leverage your data and KPIs to see what's working. I mean, we're really big into looking at what content is somebody looking on our website, so that we can refactor it and go back and add calls to action on those pages. So for example, huge tip for you guys right now, if you have Google Analytics already on your website, and you could look at the top access pages on your website. Some of those pages are not going to be your homepage and your About Us. Maybe there might be blog articles that spotlight a really important piece of information that people typically look for and find. Well, there's an easy win there to go to that page and put a call to action to get in touch with you, or download a white paper for more information or something. That really, in terms of the poll question, takes that eyeball from a visitor into potentially a conversion to start a relationship with you. And we use KPIs like that about access data, bounce rate, engagement, keywords, to not only inform what's working, but give us insight as to what the next content needs to be to put on the website. This is an example of an information architecture. That's what we call kind of the organization of the content. If you think about, if you've ever planned a addition to a house, or built a house or bought a house that has a blueprint, this is kind of the blueprint for a website and where content should live. The reason why we thought it was important to show is because you've got the need for really somewhere for that content to live. So a lot of people talk about putting that content on a blog, where we really suggest that there should be some place of information, especially now where thought leadership and content in an area, time period of COVID, where people are looking for information online and you don't have the opportunity to go sit with them, to have somewhere that your sales team, your marketing team can house that information, organize it in a way that makes sense, and continue to create content to put it up there to build your thought leadership or your value to the customer in that area. So we suggest that resource center. Here's an example of what one might look like. This is what we call a wireframe of drawing out the way that the content might appear on the page. But you can see that we've organized it by the content type. So articles, blog and news, white papers, webinars, case studies, and videos all have their own sections. We have other opportunities that we've laid this content out in ways that is more by the pain that the person has and the challenges that they might have, and that content is organized in that way. So you really want to think about the right way to organize the content for your specific business, and then make sure that people can find that information very easily through your website. So I want to talk about SEO a little bit. I mean, I don't think we can leave Google out of the conversation when we're talking about content. More often than not, this is where people go to find their information, right? They start with Google, they start with a search, and they're putting a certain term into Google to find the solution to their problem, right? So the way that people search when they don't know about you is they first search for the pain that they might have, right? So if somebody has a rash on their arm, they're searching for a rash on my arm, and they find all of the different things that it might be that they that it could possibly be. Then they're going to look at those individual things that they found as those maybe like those call them ailments or potential diseases or something that it is, and do more research on that. They're working their way down the funnel. So that first thing, that pain, that rash, that challenge that they have, you want to understand and identify that the way that people are going to find it, and you want to make sure that you speak to that inside the pages of content on your website. This is an example of a website that we recently launched for a client, where healthcare virtual assistant was the term that we knew that they wanted to show up for, that they should show up for, and right first front and center, it's the H2 of the page. It's what they're going to be seeing when they get to the site, and Google knows to index for it. As another example, the product features, we did homework and figured out that people are going to be looking for, what can I do with this? Where, what problem does this solve for me? And organizing that content in a way that on the web page somebody easily can see it, navigate it, get an understanding, build that trust, and take the next step is important. And this client particularly jumped up in rankings as soon as we launched because of the amount of work that went into those search terms being in the right place on the right pages. I'm not going to go too detailed into this because I will send this, and I do want to be sensitive to time and leave time for questions. But there's a couple of basic things you want to make sure from an SEO standpoint. You want to make sure you identify those keywords, put them in your post or page titles, include them in your H1 or heading tags of the page. You put it this way: if you're about to target a keyword term that somebody's searching for, that rash or that pain, but it doesn't say it anywhere on the website, it doesn't say it anywhere on your web page, there's very likely no chance that you're going to show up for it. So it needs to be in there, used properly. You want to make sure that you link between pages of your website, especially as you create new content. So for example, for us, if we talk about content strategy and then we talk about personas, but they're two different pages on our website and they work hand in hand, we link those two together to allow more context for Google and for visitors. Images, using alt tags, making sure that you're specifying what the image says, URLs having the keyword terms and being underneath 100 characters, and including descriptions is really important for SEO. Always proofread, make sure everything is read before you post it out there to make sure it includes the keywords that you want. It reads properly for anybody getting to the page, and it reads properly for search engines looking for those keyword terms from a ranking perspective. There's definitely an art to SEO. Not saying it's going to be the type of thing you could just take this and run with it, but there are some key basics that when we look at a site and we see these things are issues, they definitely help bring those more eyeballs to the website, increasing the trust and visibility.
And just a couple of things to mention is, yes, you always want to focus on keywords, but keep in mind that you want to do the variations of those keywords. So as Ben mentioned, there was no keyword stuffing where you're just saying that same word over and over and over again. So look at how you can create almost like topic clusters around that keyword and use variations of it, because there's going to be different ways that people are obviously searching. And in addition, you always even want to think beyond just the keyword, in the sense that you don't want to only use the keyword for the sake of using it, but you want to make sure that you're using it in a natural way so that, you know, Google now reads that as well. It's not just for search or for rankings. It's more to make sure that you're speaking in a conversational manner in which people usually speak. You're not, you know, trying to force something that just doesn't seem to make any sense. So keep that in mind as you do, you know, as you think about your SEO as well.
So one of the major things that you guys mentioned in terms of a challenge is converting the audience. So let's just say somebody's come to the page and, you know, they found you through the Google search result. One of the best ways to get them to convert is to make sure that that content builds trust. So especially for business to business, if you're in a business to business company and you really want to portray yourself as a thought leader. So let's say you're in finance or you're in real estate and you need to be that trusted resource for the person. Content is a good way by which to build that trust. So we use the acronym EAT, EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So you answer those questions high up on the page. You optimize around the search intents that your persona understands and is looking for, and show that you know your stuff. I mean, it's an opportunity to flex around resources, building out content. Video, we're suggesting a ton of video and suggesting that people invest in video as a resource to answer the question, get your face in front of people, speak, you know, basically show your stuff in terms of what you know. Make sure that you're accurate. You know, you don't want to just put content out there to put content out there. There's a lot of paid content services that maybe don't know your industry like you do. So some of them are great, and I don't discourage anybody from using content services that know that that content's going to be optimized and targeted and accurate. But you really want to make sure that you're portraying your company with this content. Is it accurate? Visual consistency. So that's another big part of trust building. You know, we recently were on a call with somebody where they had multiple landing pages. They didn't match up. The style, you know, style of one page looked different than the style of another. And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I can tell you that from my perspective, when I don't see something matching up, I instinctively get spidey senses that go up to say, I don't really trust this company as much. What's going on? Why isn't the brand consistent? So you really want to make sure that when people hear information, they're likely to remember, you know, only 10% of it, that you're front and center. You build on the trust that you've created through visual consistency, and you use imagery that will be able to have them retain the information later on. So think about this in terms of visual consistency that builds their trust, and then visual aids, you know, flow charts, maps, graphics, things like that, that help them retain that information and remember you as the trusted resource visually that brought that together. So creating and promoting your content, now let's say you've created that content, you put it out on the website, you've got it there, and you really need to start now joining the conversation wherever it's going to be. So remember back when we talked about personas, we talked about those questions that people have, and I mentioned something about hashtags and looking some of that up. But really, it could just be as basic as looking up those hashtags on social media, looking at those search terms, and finding who is showing up and ranking for those terms, making sure that you are going and putting that content out there. Social media is the easiest way to do that. Twitter, especially on a hashtag format, you're able to search for the hashtag and then join that conversation with additional hashtags, reply to people that already posted something about that. LinkedIn for B2B is increasingly becoming something that you can join conversations, use hashtags, search your network for people that talk about the same thing, join the conversation with them, and then use the content that you've created to start conversations, even just within your network. So I know somebody in LinkedIn, I see they post about something that's similar to something that I have the answer to. I use content and I post that link to the content in the comments of that person's post. And now all of their followers get to see that and see that I am the thought leader that knows the answer to that question. So again, provide that solution, the details of it within the content, and be a storyteller. I mean, thought leadership, I don't want to keep throwing that buzz term out there, but from a content standpoint, that is a great way for you to build trust with the audience and continue to know that you're telling your story out there to build trust with your audience using good content. You know, Jennifer hinted at this too about not stuffing the terms and just looking at this as a very, egocentric way about being a thought leader, but really try and solve the pain point. Google over the last couple of years has gotten really good at making sure that they show results for specifically people that solve the answer to the problem. Even if you think about an Alexa device or your Google Home devices, you ask a question and Google wants to get you that answer instantly, as quickly as possible to solve the problem. So there's even these snippets of content that show up at the top when somebody searches for a question. You want to make sure that you're answering the question as quickly as possible on the networks that people ask those questions and really going out there and promoting. So here's just some ideas. I mean, the website we've talked about, SEO in terms of Google and showing up in those rankings, featured snippets, other places is great. But social, paid advertising, another opportunity. You can buy terms on Google AdWords for content that you might have that draws in conversions. You might be able to go out on other websites that maybe you have partners in the industry. If you're an architecture firm, maybe you have a developer that you partner with and can sponsor a post or write a post on their site, bring people back into your website using backlinks and so on. Email, I cannot stress enough, especially right now with a lot of people at their desks at home, leveraging the content that you've created and deploying emails or pushing emails out with your content on an ongoing basis. Stay top of mind, push that thought leadership out there, answer the pain points and questions that you already know that people have directly to the audience that you know is asking that question. So we use a tool called HubSpot, as I mentioned. It's great for not only building those landing pages, getting people to fill out a form, and then having them become part of your email ecosystem, but also sending out email, seeing how people are engaging with it, and using content that you might create, put on your website to draw people in through email. Video might also be a good thing to use inside your emails. If you've created the video, like I said, that's a good way to get your face in front of people. We're seeing that as a tactic as well, or maybe there's a graphic that looks like a video inside the email, gets sent out. There's a question that goes along with it. Somebody clicks through to watch the video. They don't watch it directly through the email, but maybe they go to your website to watch it or directly to YouTube, and they're seeing that information, getting the question answered, and building trust because they're getting to see you and meet you right away. So with that, I'll pass it off to Jennifer in terms of building a strategy. If you build it, they may not just show up. You really need a strategy to take it to the next level.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here scrolling through is, again, an example from that same company interview group that we had done for them. This is just a small sample, but you'll notice that there's a lot of various things that go into it. You still want to continue to do an overview of your company, what's all included, make sure that you're still aligned on your goals. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? These can be as elaborate or as non-detailed, high level, 30,000 feet answers as you need them to be, but you want to make sure that you're all aligned on it, because if you're not, then you automatically are going to start off on the wrong foot. From there, you're going to go into things that we've already discussed, identifying who your competitors are, where are they, getting their content out, what are they doing, where your personas, going into your personas, what are their trigger points, what are their challenges, how can you help solve them? And once you have all that information gathered, you can then go into, okay, let me start putting together a plan for our company. You would never, for example, go on a trip without first planning it out, or maybe sometimes people do, but it doesn't always work out the way you want it to. So, you know, if you're going to go somewhere, you're probably going to need maybe to buy plane tickets, get a hotel reservation, make sure that, you know, everything's taken care of, right down to the little details. Maybe what are you doing day to day? You would never just like jump right into it. So you really want to understand, you know, what channels are out there, how many channels, you know, are really going to be available to you. Some are going to be paid. It'll awfully, you know, often depend upon your budget. And then from there, you even want to narrow it down more, because you don't want to make it too overwhelming. There's thousands of marketing channels out there, if you think about it, maybe even hundreds of thousands when you get into different digital mediums, depending upon your industry. So you can start to narrow it down and understand, where am I going to get the biggest bang for our buck? Again, you want to, just like you're doing your top 2 to 3 personas, you may only want to pick your top 5 to 10 maybe marketing channels and understand, can we really put our efforts towards them? If you go to the next slide, Ben, once you have kind of narrowed that down, there you go, you can then start to put together a content calendar. So going back to your personas, going back to what are the questions that they're asking, what are the content topics, those are the things you can start pulling into and start building out a content calendar. What this helps to do is keep the team on track with who's doing what necessarily, or what are we going to do it, and when are we going to be posting it, and what type of asset is it? Is it a video? Is it a blog? Is it a web page? What do we need to address in certain situations? And everybody's going to have a different process, but typically, you know, you're going to need to start with writing, designing, getting the information out there, who's going to be posting it, and, you know, making sure that it's optimized, and all those, you know, tidying up all those little things as you go along. And now that you had a content calendar, we do ours in Google Sheets for a reason, because things change. And the fact that you can easily manipulate things and push things or edit things. We did content calendars for some of our clients back in January, hopefully carrying them through the 6-month process. Come March, a lot of what we were planning on doing in April and May, out the window, change it up, see what we're going to do differently, shifted maybe things to a lot more of a webinar or things of that nature. So we really can keep this as a flexible opportunity to just really identify where we're going, but it also allows everybody on the team to understand what goals we're trying to accomplish and keep on a timeline. If you want to dig down even further on the next slide, you can create, as you'll see, a social media calendar. This goes into even more of like, what are you going to post about on a week-to-week basis and on what channels? Knowing that you maybe will be publishing some piece of content, you're going to want to have it in a promotion schedule. I always say that it's great to promote something once when it first comes out, once again during that month 1, and then bring it back up and say month 3 or 4 for those people that may have missed it. Using different language, but going to the same links, going to the same pages. It gives an opportunity for people that maybe didn't see it the first time or the second time to see it on the third time, or maybe they didn't see it in an email. So there's no shame in kind of putting it out in different ways, in different formats and at different times, and reusing that content, because that's what it's there for. It's supposed to be evergreen. It's supposed to help you through things, and it's supposed to, you know, allow people to better understand you as a company and better understand your offerings, your solutions. Always include things like calls to actions, and you know, those are some of the, I'm getting into the nitty-gritty myself because that's the way I act, but you know, you can see how all these things kind of work together for those 3 things. So they all kind of go hand in hand in a way, and it really works out pretty well.
Cool. So pulling it all together, only 44% of B2B content marketers have a documented content strategy. Again, see it as opportunity where you can put together a strategy and define it. We're going to give you that template in a second with that link so you can download it and start building out your own. But as we've discussed, it really provides a roadmap of your company's goals and how you hope to achieve them. I mean, you know, like I said before, your content really builds that bridge between their pain points of your audience to you as the solution, and where they are in their journey really decides where you're going to put that bridge and how you're going to get them to you. So in a nutshell, there's no one-size-fits-all marketing strategy. SEO and content marketing helps drive visibility and will continue to do so. PageRank, as Jennifer mentioned, is way more about content than it is about just the terms. You really have to answer the question and be relevant to the persona. Don't just push out content just to do it. It's really counterproductive to do that. You might be spending a lot of time creating content that's not really pinpointed towards the people that you're trying to attract or convert. And really, to win the game, you got to focus on more optimized, personalized, and influencer activated content experiences. So really trying to hone in on that persona, target, speak to them specifically. From a conversion standpoint, in terms of that question that you guys have as far as how do we convert when somebody gets there, you really got to look at that. Okay, they read this article or they read this content that we put together. What's the next thing they might be interested in? We talk about calls to action all the time. You may not really be ready to ask them to call you after they've just read an article about the question that they had. They may still need some more information, or they may just want to sign up for your newsletter or something like that. So, and promote on the channels where your audience lives. Really go figure out where they are and engage with them there. Join the conversation. People look at digital as if it's this entire new world of things that is very, very different than just physical. But as you see with, I don't know if you guys have kids, my kids and video games, they're there using and engaging with other kids and other people as if they're sitting right next to them. You got to take a page out of that book and really try and join the conversation as if those people are right there, because there are people behind the computer. So here's a link to the strategy template. Basically you can follow this URL, go.creativemms.com/template. And when you go there, it'll ask you for some information, put the information in, and it will give you a link to the template as well as some other information that will help you start to build this out. And really, it's the first step towards trying to identify, instead of looking at a blank canvas, the plan for a strategy. I mean, it's the end of the year. You've got fourth quarter, quickly approaching. If I know the tab group that I'm in is making us really start to think about our next year goals already, and we're starting to build out our SWOT analysis and all of that stuff. So this should be a part of what you're thinking about for next year. Use this to build out your template. To build out your strategy. And if you have questions, of course, we're here. We will gladly help in terms of answering anything.
And Jody, it looks like you were able to share it on, put it in the chat channel for help. Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out directly, hello@creativemms.com. I will see that email come through and be happy to help you. Don't feel like this is something like you guys need to engage with us for us to help. I'm part of the tab groups as well, and I'm always happy to help lend an ear, answer a question or two if you guys have it, especially for business owners that are really struggling to find out what to do with digital and trying to reach their audience with the things that we just mentioned. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Great, thanks. So everyone, you've got the questions area there, and you've also got the chat box there. So if you've got any questions, please start typing those in. But I'm going to ask a question first, because certainly personas for a business, especially if you've never really done a persona before, it can be quite overwhelming to try to feel like, how do I know who my personas are? Like, how many should I have? And if someone's never developed one before, how do they, is it intuitive? Do you survey? How do you really develop a really good persona, and how many should you have in your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. Go ahead, Jennifer, I'll let you answer it.
Yeah, so the number that you're going to have, you just don't want to make it overwhelming. Obviously a lot of companies can have, upwards of 10 to 15 different types of customers that they service, but you'll find that traditionally maybe 3 to 4 are going to make up most of your revenue that you're receiving. So you want to focus on where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck first, and really understand those individuals. As far as research and how do you figure it out, the answer to your question earlier when you were throwing all those ideas out is yes. You go to all those things. You can look at Google. You can talk to the individuals within your company. Think of your stakeholders. You can even talk to some of your, top customers that you already have, and what brought them in. If you have that relationship with that customer, what are their trigger points, and why did they reach out to you in the first place, and what got them motivated to use you versus maybe the competition. So there's all different ways that you can get that information. We actually use everything. We do stakeholder interviews, we do customer interviews, we do our own data research just through Google and different industry publications that maybe have the statistics that we're looking for. But you can really kind of figure out, and then also you're looking at your competition, where your competition is, how their customers are reacting, where they happen to be most engaged. One thing that I don't know if Ben mentioned this or not, is we also subscribe to our competitors like newsletters and emails, just so that we can stay on the pulse of what are they talking about. It's a little backwards way of doing things. It's not like we're going to go out there and promote them and publish them. And trust me, I'm sure they're following us too if they're smart. You want to see what they're doing. Follow them on their social media channels. Get involved in the conversations if you can. There's no shame in having a little bit of friendly rivalries across the two, and making it more of a camaraderie versus a competition where you're always cutthroat with each other. But if you do want to do the back door, use your personal email address and register for their email. But you can find a lot of different sources internally to help build out a persona at any point in time. And all the people that you work with are more than willing to kind of share their thoughts, whether they're dealing with customers, whether it's your sales team, whether it's a marketing team, whether there's 5 people on your whole team, talk to all 5 in a roundtable kind of discussion to really identify who they are and start whiteboarding it out and narrowing it down where these things are. It can be a prolonged process, and it could take, a half a day to a day to really get this information gathered. But what's nice about it is then you have it for a long period of time, and you'll always want to go back and revisit it to make sure that things hadn't changed. Again, I was saying, what we did in February may have changed in March. So we needed to look at that and, did their personas change at all, or are their personas the same? We just need to find different avenues to reach them now.
A lot of the people who join our call, they're obviously business owners. They don't always perform the content strategy in their business, but they either have a person or maybe even a virtual person doing this work for them, whether it's social or blogging, etc. What sort of questions would a business owner ask of their team members to make sure that they're focused on the right outcomes? Because I feel like when it comes to content strategy, it feels like, have you written a blog post this month or this week is a question, but that's not really getting to the heart of whether your content strategy is effective. What questions would a business owner ask to their marketing team to make sure they're focused on the right outcomes with their content?
Yeah, so that's where data really comes in. I mean, we like to align with our partners, the people that we work with, on main KPIs for what they're looking to accomplish in their business. So especially for B2B, which my guess is there's a large majority of B2B businesses, here as part of this conversation, a lot of times you're looking for leads, awareness, creating traction by measuring how many inbound leads and opportunities did we get from our website. You might also look at just traffic in general to the website in terms of people seeing you and making sure that you're growing and trending in the right direction for that. But for most people, frankly, it's leads. And so we work really closely to establish kind of benchmark KPIs around leads, traffic, bounce rate, engagement, things like that. And so I think if the question that I would want to know is really, so if I was a business owner and I would ask, Jennifer, how are we doing? It would be, how's our website performing in terms of bringing us prospects? And I would hope that any marketing director or person that's working with you already has their measurement or KPIs that they're tracking, or that you've already aligned on them with your goals for marketing for you on an ongoing basis, and they can answer relative to those KPIs. So, for us, we measure how many leads came through the website this month, where did they come from, what did they see before they became a lead, so that we start to see which content was working and look backwards at the effectiveness of maybe this webinar or something else that we've done towards creating conversations with us.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question from Howard, and I'm going to just extrapolate a little bit more on this. Social media, it's like there's, now we have sort of a TikTok as well now, and different channels emerging, etc. And for, a business owner, can be, there's a lot of choices there when it comes to social media. Howard asks, where should I be for social media? I'm not sure of what type of business he is, but could you give just a little bit of a rundown on the different channels and what types of businesses get the best results from those social channels from your experience?
Yeah, I'll let you chime in too, Jennifer, but first off, the first thing I would say is that's why we start with personas. I mean, usually when you're trying to answer that question, the first question is who you're trying to reach. And the reason is because the audience using those networks varies depending on age, demographic, and so on, as well as what your goal is, right? So if you think of LinkedIn, it's mostly business, it's mostly people looking for business to business and networking on business to business. TikTok, as in terms of that as an example, is going to be a much younger audience, bigger brands trying to reach millennials and younger audience, very similar to Snapchat, where Snapchat might be slightly older. You've got Instagram, where there's a lot of people on Instagram, but it's very photo heavy. And so sometimes it's hard for a business to communicate services and thought leadership through photos and maybe videos that people don't expect to see on Instagram, though Instagram and Facebook are, both part of the same ecosystem. So what I would say is, I mean, instead of just giving the answer as far as for your industry, it's really more about who are you looking to target? Where do they go for their information? And then how does your strategy plan to reach them? And I'll tell you why that's really important is because one of our personas is also hiring new talent, hiring new people to be part of the team. And we use Instagram for that more than we use LinkedIn for that, right? LinkedIn is way more about business generation and business development, where we know, the persona, some of the people that might be looking for us before they choose to work with us on our team, they're going to look at Instagram and look at the culture. So think about that for you and for your business. Your personas might be a little bit diverse. And so you're going to want to think about for each persona, which network do I want to be on and known for?
Great.
And to that point, also consider where your competitors are. When you're doing all of your research and you're thinking about your personas and you look at your competition and who you consider to be your major competition has thousands of followers on Facebook and 15 or thousands of followers on LinkedIn and 15 people on Facebook, it may be that that's where they're getting the most engagement. So it's followership, but it's also engagement. How are people reacting to their posts? Are they getting some kind of reactions? What kind of groups are out there that you can join that are, things that you can start to build your social presence with? Because people aren't just going to automatically follow you. You need to start giving them relevant content that makes it worthwhile, but you also need to walk that sensitive line of not giving them too much content where you're like, whoa, overload, I'm not going to follow them anymore because I turn around every minute and they have a post and I just can't keep up with it. So you need to consider that fine line based upon who your audience is of how much is too much and getting that right balance between posting versus engagement. Because engagement, the more you post, don't be surprised if engagement rates start to drop. People just won't be as engaged if you're posting 3 to 4 posts a day. Tweets, totally different story. If that's where your persona is and they're, more of a news, platform, social platform, that's a great opportunity to go out there and to participate in a lot of the hashtag conversations that are going on in Twitter. And that may require some more tweets than you would obviously not put on LinkedIn, but it becomes more of a conversational piece through Twitter versus, using LinkedIn groups to just kind of join the conversation.
Great. Just one final question before we leave. If I'm in the business, say, of selling tires, and then there's major multinationals that are also in the same place, how can a small to medium-sized business owner keep up with the behemoth sort of marketing machines? Is it really possible for a business, a tire manufacturer or a tire seller in Pennsylvania to be found and even beat some of those bigger brands that are out there and be seen?
Yeah, so it's hard to answer without knowing a lot more about the business. But one of the things that I just kind of the first couple things that come to mind for me are like I mentioned about Blue Ocean Strategy. It's a great book about Blue Ocean Strategy. I think that's exactly what it's called. But it's really about finding what's different about you and uniquely positioning you as maybe a more detailed service provider with more attention, or customer service or something like that as a differentiator for somebody buying from you versus a bigger brand, and trying to find more specifically something that is just only you can offer, only you really do that those other brands don't do. The other thing I mentioned there too is a lot of times smaller businesses have more of a local play, and so they can speak to their audience in terms of where they are. So for example, for a company in Philadelphia, talking about let's say if you're real estate, where to live in Philadelphia. If you're a tire company in Philadelphia and you know that most of the companies in this area are in construction or, are let's say doing some specific industry specifically because it's part of that location, you can target and specifically build to become a niche inside that location and build that ecosystem around where there's more blue ocean than those big sharks fighting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben and Jennifer. Even as a Chief Marketing Officer, I learn a lot on this particular call. And thank you so much for sharing that template, getting that content strategy, and that thinking a little bit more about your digital presence is really important for all businesses, especially today as we move more and more online. For everyone on the call, this session has been recorded. It will take a couple of hours to get you out the presentation and the recording. But I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. Hope you found it as informative as I have. And thank you once again, Ben and Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Take care, everybody. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.